All right, what's up, guys? It's Fast Cars, Fast Money, and it's Andrew here. We're going over the race preview and initial thoughts for the Cup Series at Dover. Also have an Xfinity Series preview video up right now. It's more or less the same, going over a lot of the same kind of initial strategy and kind of how we're approaching the race. I did mention in that video that we'll have a final picks video up for the Xfinity Series and the Cup Series this weekend. I mean, the last couple of weeks have been a little, jumbled with either, I was traveling or just tight turnaround times with the schedule. But with the Cup Series having their qualifying the day before the race, same with the Xfinity Series, should give us plenty of time to fill out the spreadsheet and get like a final quick picks video out there for everybody. Also, I'm going to the race this weekend at Dover, so if you guys are too, maybe we can run into each other. Maybe I'll see you there. But looking forward to it. Hopefully it's a good race, and hopefully they're able to pass, and it doesn't turn into a single file train like some of the Martinsville races and Richmond race to a certain extent. But regardless, it'll be a good time. So if you guys are going, hopefully I see you there. But let's talk about the kind of, strategy, some things I'm looking out for, coming in this weekend. So Dover is a kind of unique track. There aren't really too many tracks on the schedule you can really compare it to, especially with the tracks that we've been to already this year. And especially recently, like it's been Richmond, it's been Martinsville, it's been the Bristol dirt race, it's been Talladega. So we're finally kind of back to an actual, oval track that is not necessarily a large track, but it's not a short track by any means. There's a ton of laps, so 400 laps. So there's a lot of, dominator points up for grabs, 100 points for laps led and 180 points for fast laps. So that's something you definitely want to keep in mind. Last week at Talladega, we didn't care at all about dominator points. And now that we're at Dover, it's kind of back into the equation. With it being a unique track and just like we've been saying all year, because it's a new car with the next gen, like I don't really think track history plays too big of a role when you're trying to figure out, potentially who might be good and who might not be good. So it still matters a little bit, but I still mainly would focus on just looking at the practice data, looking at the qualifying, using your eyes, like listen to those broadcasts if you can, just kind of picking up on little tidbits of information. But usually it's a pretty clear indicator of how they're going to run on the race on Sunday. And you can try to take advantage of drivers who don't qualify well and show good practice speed. We have seen this next gen car be tough to pass at certain tracks. So if that is the case here, I think track position is going to be really important, because the only way you could really advance your position then is, potentially on pit road, or if a guy in front of you has an accident. But it could very well just turn into, hey, you kind of fall in line and kind of follow the guy in front of you, which I hope doesn't happen. But who knows, we'll see. This is also a track where a lot of drivers usually go laps down, and it's really easy to get caught a lap down. So I really want to try to focus on drivers who can stay on the lead lap, or drivers who just start, so deep in the field that I think they offer me, maybe a lot of place differential upside and can give you, plot positive 10 points through place differential and get maybe a top 25 finish. Especially if a driver, fails tech and has to start in the rear of the field or whatever it might be. But yeah, this is really a weekend I want to chase, dominators. I think it's kind of a 2 to 3 dominator build, very similar to the Xfinity Series. And then just trying to find value, whether it's through guys who are underpriced, drivers who look to have really good cars through practice and qualifying, or drivers who start deep in the field who have the ability to move forward and finish well for you. So Guys highlighted in blue are just guys that I think I am initially interested in, or guys I'm kind of curious to see how they're going to run. Um, the list will change, and we'll have all the interest levels finalized. But Hendrick Motorsports, all four of their drivers are in the 10K range. If you remember the Dover race last year, they finished 1 through 4. It's a completely different car and different year, and it's a different race. But yeah, it's crazy to see all four of them jammed up in there. So I think you probably need some combination, probably 2 of these drivers, maybe only 1, depending on how strongly you feel about some of the 9 and 8K drivers that I think offer a lot of value as well. And we've seen that constantly with this next gen car. Like with the Xfinity series, it's pretty straightforward. Like there's really only a handful of guys in the Xfinity series that really actually have a shot of leading laps, running up front, getting the win, unless something crazy happens, or at least from a DFS standpoint. Like, yeah, that might driver not win the race, but that's the driver that is going to be picking up a lot of those dominator points. Where when you get to the Cup Series, especially with this next gen car and looking at some of the races earlier this year, like it isn't always as obvious. And there's a lot of other drivers, especially in the 8K range, the 9K range, that offer a lot of upside. And sometimes they've been significantly outscoring, or just value wise are better plays than jamming in, some of the 10K and 11K drivers like we normally do on the Xfinity series. So because of that, I think you can build kind of a little bit more of a balanced lineup. And just because we're saying like, oh, you have to get 2 to 3 dominators, like those dominators don't always correlate to the most expensive drivers on the slate. Like I think Tyler Reddick, Ross Chastain, Chase Briscoe, like Kyle Busch, Kevin Harvick, like these are all relatively cheap drivers, relatively speaking, when you're looking at potential dominators, where you can easily fit 3 or 4 of those drivers in a line, depending on how top heavy you want to go and how balanced of a line you want to go. I could see all of them getting out front. I could see all of them picking up fast laps. Where you get to the Xfinity series and you start looking at the 9K and 8K range, and you're like, man, I don't know how likely this is. So because of that, I think you can get a little bit more value, a little bit lower on the slate, especially from a dominator standpoint. So just keep that in mind. When we say dominator, it doesn't mean like, okay, we have to jam in 3 or 4 of these guys up front, like you do with the Xfinity series. Larson's really expensive. I don't know if it'll be worth that price tag. We'll kind of see with practice and qualifying. Same with Chase Elliott. Like I think Elliott's still the points leader. He's been consistent, but he hasn't been that guy out front or picking up fast laps. So he's consistent, but from like a DFS standpoint, he hasn't necessarily always been scoring the best. William Byron is definitely when I start to get, I'd say, the most of my interest of this range. He just has been super fast all year long, great speed. He already has 2 wins on the season, just a lot of positive momentum. Him and Rudy Fugle look to be a great combination, and looks to be having a great year, and has been having a pretty fast car at all the different racetracks that we've been at. So I like Byron. I also like Blaney and Bowman a lot too. I think, Bowman's the cheapest of, he's not really that cheap, but he's cheaper than his other, Hendrick teammates there. He actually won this race last year, so maybe he'll carry a little bit more ownership because of that. Ryan Blaney's been showing excellent speed all year too. So I like Blaney, Bowman, Byron. I still think you should consider Elliott and Larson. I'm not completely ruling out Logano, but I just think the other drivers in this range offer you a lot more upside than Logano does coming into the week. That could change. Not really getting the Truex or Hamlin. Harvick's been pretty consistent as well, just consistently running well, running in the top 10. And, if you can get up to the top 5, hey, anything can really happen. Kyle Busch has been so hit or miss. He's more of a boomer bust play, I would say. So I did highlight him. He's pretty cheap this week. Like it's crazy to get Kyle Busch at only $9,100. But I'd actually probably feel better rostering Tyler Reddick and Ross Chastain. I really like both of these drivers. And I think you can easily get, maybe two of these guys up here, plug in, Reddick and Chastain, and then go low and hit value. Or, hey, I only want one of these drivers up here. I'm going to plug in Reddick and Chastain, and then have a little bit more of a balanced lineup. So we'll see. These are the guys that have been running fast all year long. Like Reddick doesn't have his win yet, but he's usually been up front, showing good speed throughout the different races that we've been to. Chase Briscoe has shown his different flashes as well. So I really like the 8K and the 9K range a lot, with the Cup Series, and it's like almost the opposite with the Xfinity Series. I guess I'd like the 8K range of the Xfinity Series. I didn't necessarily love the 9K range. 7K range, I think Austin Dillon, Kurt Busch, Austin Cindric, these are all drivers who I think probably won't really pick up too many fast laps. And I definitely don't think they're going to get you any laps led, but they are drivers who I think can stay on the lead lap. When you start looking at some of the other drivers in this range, you start to wonder if, okay, like Daniel Suarez is kind of expensive. Like, yeah, Trackhouse has been running well, but I'd rather just pay up, for Chastain, that I think has a lot more upside. I guess Christopher Bell is cheaper than Kyle Busch. I didn't see him down there, but I still think Kyle Busch was a better play. Keselowski, that team has been up and down. Bubba Wallace, Stenhouse is having a just horrific year. Terrible. So I really like these drivers. I think drivers who could potentially stay on the lead lap, because you're going to need to come down to the 7K, 6K, and maybe even the 5K range. I'd say Eric Jones is probably another driver I would highlight in this range. I think Eric Jones and Eric Almirola are two drivers I could see staying on the lead lap. And then he's been consistent, all year long. But I think Todd Gilliland is probably going to carry a lot of ownership. But I don't want to really play any of these other drivers down here, and we'll see where they start. So yeah, that'll do it for this preview. Like I said, I think there's a lot of value from, probably Bell all the way up, to Larson. So I think you can get your dominators, from this range, maybe trying to get 3 or 4 plays, in there, and trying to find some value, depending on how top heavy you want to go. But we've seen it, time after time. You can get a lot of value and a lot of upside, a lot of, some of these drivers. So I'd rather have more of them to increase my chances, instead of, playing only 2 of these guys up front, or, 3 of these guys up front, and completely missing out on all this, potential value in the middle of the slate there. So we'll get the picks video out, probably get it posted Sunday morning of the race, or maybe even Saturday night. Both of our spreadsheets will be up on Twitter at FastCarsFM. And yeah, hopefully I see some of you guys at the racetrack this weekend.